Kel, why don't you give a quick introduction to our viewers about yourself, and quickly then we'll jump right into the interesting stuff after that.
Absolutely. So I am a active duty law enforcement officer with my respective law enforcement agency. I've been an officer for 23 years now. I spent almost approximately around 15 years in an operational capacity, the majority of that time as a beat patrol officer in the downtown east side of Vancouver. However, for the last while, I have been a detective in the investigative division of our department. The work that I do as a detective is important, no doubt. However, um, my fabric, my thought process is more in tune and inclined to be back on the street,
Yeah.
to connect at a grassroots level. As far as I'm concerned, putting on a uniform, uh, that was the very attractive factor about it, is that I can make a significant impact on a social level at a very grassroots level. And so being out there in patrol is what gave me a sense of fulfillment and contentment. So, but it was also my work as a patrol officer that essentially paved the path and led the way to engaging more with youth. I would see a steady stream of youth that were entering the open air drug market in the downtown east side. These youth were using and selling, committing petty crimes. So essentially, the parameters and boundaries of our duty entailed enforcing the law, apprehending these kids, pushing them to the criminal justice system. They'd be charged, convicted, thrown into the youth detention center, put back onto the streets after they finish serving their sentences to re-engage in that perpetual cycle of violence over and over again. And I just felt as officers, we could be doing so much more in terms of providing these kids with healthy alternatives that would foster and cultivate their growth and allow them to blossom, flourish, and thrive to become productive citizens of society. And so that essentially became the bedrock and foundation to start building programs for youth in the downtown east side, which in essence became the tip of the spear to create Kids Play
Yeah.
Foundation.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I was so excited to come here and do your interview, because when I was doing my research about the fact that you were working, I mean, even just the life of a law enforcement officer is just so difficult, and it's you're constantly going through so much things happening around you. But since you were working in one of the most violent places in whole North America, downtown Eastside Vancouver, how was that of your experience dealing with all the drug addicts there?
The experience was eye-opening and it was very sobering. And the reason why I say that is because as an officer, I think I was tremendously one-dimensional when I first arrived in the downtown east side because much like anybody else that would come into that area, I think we had our preconceived notions
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
drugs or using drugs, sorry, I should say. So we just saw them as junkies, as
Yeah.
drug and as individuals that were lost cause that can break their addiction habit anytime that they want it. But we all know that's not true. I think we're beginning to realize the science behind all that. There's a biological and chemical dependency when these individuals start using these drugs, and they're in need of medical attention.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be so quick to pass judgment either, because a lot of these individuals come through very traumatic circumstances in many cases, where unfortunately they turn to the drugs to cope with a
Yeah.
lot of pain, suffering, and trauma. And so I think it's important from a moral and social obligation point of view that we provide these individuals with the resources and support and guidance that they need to get the help that they need so that they can become individuals productive in society.
Amazing, amazing work, Cal. Cal, we really salute all the work that you have done in the downtown east side. And can we go a little bit deep into what Kids Play Foundation actually does, and how it's, because I've now that it has become such an enormous organization, which is not just helping kids in Canada, but also abroad as well. But I'd love if you could go a little bit deep into what Kids Play Foundation is doing right now on the ground zero, and how someone who is going through the difficult phase in their life mentally can actually get in touch with you, so that they could get on the right path in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Kids Play Foundation, when I essentially created it, it was predicated on a two-tier principle. Number one is that it would be completely volunteer-based. And number two is that we would want every single program to be absolutely free of cost, so no child is deprived of an opportunity.
Awesome.
We've been able to do that, and we will continue to do that. But more importantly, with respect to the volunteers, it's not just about volunteering in the community, it's about becoming leaders in the community. We want to foster leaders in our
Mm.
organization. So over 30 youth I should say, or volunteers that came through our programs that were volunteering in various capacities have now gone on to become law enforcement officers,
Wow.
whether sheriffs, corrections, police officers. So they're doing tremendously well. But that was what we always wanted, was to give these volunteers a platform where they could elevate, go on to go do bigger things in the community. But my expectation ask always was that if we do this for you, then all we ask in return is that you come back and mentor some other youth that
Mhm.
help them also
Yeah.
achieve their ambitions. And so we want that wave to continue. And so that's why with Kids Play, it's not just about the kids that are participating in our program, which is obviously our focus is to keep these youth on the right track and away from the lifestyle of drugs, gangs, and crime, but also to build a platform
Yeah.
and infrastructure for volunteers so that they can become leaders within our community.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And something when I was looking at the Kids Play Foundation's Instagram page, something that you mentioned that literally touched my heart so deeply. You mentioned that we can actually change these kids' life if we can put them on the right path. Because what happens eventually is when someone sees a drug addict and when someone sees that they're going through some difficult phase, most of the times people would just step away and they wouldn't try to help them in any way, shape, or form. But when you mentioned that the way they can be helped is actually you can put them on the right path, and that was something very deep. And I'm also very grateful to you that I got the opportunity to actually meet you last time when I was in Vancouver, and attend the Kids Play Foundation event based on mental health, which was tremendous. Cal, would you like to shed some light on the fact that how someone going through the mental health situation these days can actually cure themselves, what resources that they could use so that they could get on the right path in their life?
Yeah, when it comes to mental health, I mean, we have to understand that it's not so much a matter of curing, it's about a matter of the help that you need so that you can cope with it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, in some cases, I mean, it might not be possible to eliminate it altogether because that's how their DNA might be wired. And so many times we've seen the individuals that are using drugs in the downtown east side are also coping with significant mental health issues, whether that's
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, just to name some of the few. So on the spectrum of mental health issues, I mean, they're going to need different levels of help. And so there's a lot of support systems out there. I mean, if somebody's just dealing with basic loss, grief, and trauma in their personal lives, uh, we essentially, with Kids Play Foundation, one of the programs that we recently created, and I'm very proud of, is that we have a clinical counseling program where we have 6 certified clinical counselors that are part of our organization that provide free counseling to
Mhm.
families in need. And so I think that's extremely important, is that it's not just a matter of helping a child out with sports or education sometimes. Sometimes it's deeper than that. It might be a family issue where we want to provide the families with the resources and support that they need so that child can be fostered into a healthy environment. And so we want to cultivate early childhood development and growth. And sometimes the only way we can do that is dealing with the trauma and dealing with the various situations that might be happening with that family.
Awesome, awesome, amazing. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. And something which was personally very deep to me as well. Ever since I actually moved to Canada back in 2019, and I got in touch with the Kal Dosanjh Foundation based in Montreal, and that's how I got to know the dark side of how a lot of people, especially in Canada, which is considered one of the most wealthiest countries in the world, are still struggling with some deep mental health issues, and especially with the homeless population. And something which our community is the backbone of our community, something which is seva. And just looking at what Kids Play Foundation is doing, has done over past so many years, is just absolutely commendable. So thank you so much for all the work that you have done till now. Cal, what is the next vision of Kids Play Foundation, and where do you see this organization heading towards in the next decade? Are you planning to expand it worldwide, reaching more countries, or you're trying to put it more based on North America?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so the vision essentially was that we would expand beyond the boundaries of British Columbia, specifically of Vancouver, Surrey, Abbotsford. And because the thing is, the program is predicated on such a simple formula,
Hmm.
namely that it should be completely volunteer based, and we provide high quality extracurricular educational and sport programming to youth absolutely free of cost. And I think once the models are in place with respect to how the program should look, that's something that's easily can be transplanted into other areas, and that's what we've done. we've taken this concept and we've recreated it in Calgary, recreated it in Edmonton, done it in Toronto, and now
Wow.
we've taken it around the world, where we are also in Colombia in South America,
Wow.
Punjab in India, and in Uganda in
Yeah.
Africa. And so all our programs are very unique in their own respects, is that each chapter is focusing on particular programming. So our Calgary chapter is quite advanced. They're more or less operating on the same wavelength that we are in terms of providing the different layers. And I can go through the layers with you. Toronto, so a bit more intermediary. They're more focused on sports at this moment and education, and they'll be slowly integrating the other layers into their programming as well. Columbia is specifically focused on baseball. Punjab is focused on sports and education and environment, and Uganda is focused on education. And so each chapter has their particular areas of focus that they want to maintain. But in terms of the different layers, so you'll, for example, here in British Columbia, in Vancouver, we have 6 layers, or 6 streams, I should say. So one stream is sports, where we provide sports camps,
Yep.
tournaments, clinics, and take kids out to professional games as well. We work in conjunction and collaboration with major sports organizations out there, which also includes the Vancouver Whitecaps, Surrey Eagles, BC Lions, just to name some of the few, so that we'll take out kids to their games, and these kids can watch the games firsthand, absolutely free of cost with their families, so results in quality family time. But more importantly than that, like for example, last week, we rented out all of BC Place
Yeah.
Stadium,
Saw that.
600 kids there, absolutely free of cost, from the inner city school catchment area playing soccer on the turf. So that's a big thing, right? So we want to provide those kinds of opportunities. And we do all kinds of sports. We do basketball, we do soccer, wrestling, just to name some of the few, and football, right? So kids get a chance to experience all these different sports absolutely free of cost. And it's fun. Another sport that we recently introduced was kabaddi, where we
Wow.
have World Cup Kabaddi tournament for
Yeah.
youth that we put on every single year. And so that's also a big one, and that's growing. So we have the sports side of things. That's one stream. Another stream is education, where we work in conjunction with 6 very high profile ex gangsters and drug dealers that have left that lifestyle, that are doing well for
Wow.
themselves, and they want to give back their time to the community. So we work in close conjunction with them and go do forums, presentations, and conferences where they come with us and connect with the kids. It's one thing for a police officer to get on stage and talk about staying away from drugs and gangs, but it's completely something else when when the kids can hear from an ex-drug dealer, gangster that was actually in that lifestyle, that has now left and is trying to do good. So we have that. We also have the environmental program, where we have planted over 5,000 trees with youth. And so we want kids to have an understanding and respect, healthy respect for their environment, and get back to it as the stewards of the earth. Another program is a clinical counseling program, where we have counselors that provide free clinical counseling to families in need. Another one is our mentorship program, where we go into elementary schools on a weekly basis and connect with the kids and establish rapport. And we have specifically designated volunteers that do that on a weekly basis. And last but not least, we have a community patrol program, where we have kids in high visibility vests that are patrolling out in neighborhoods and taking note of things that might be in disarray, for example, graffiti or littering. So we have Adopt a Street program, where we do street cleanups once a month, and we bring out a whole bunch of kids, and we've taken responsibility for that street, or cleaning up graffiti. So small little things like that, which shows that we are involved with the neighborhood and we are willing to take care of it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I genuinely believe that the as much as goodness as you throw towards the society, you just get it back in some shape form back to you as well. So that's amazing. And Cal, we'll just go a little bit deeper. We'll just touch the fact that your life as a law enforcement officer, because a lot of my friends, when they knew that I was actually going to meet you, they had this question that how what was your life decision that move you choose the career of a law enforcement officer. And then especially a lot of my friends are planning to join the border services. So what are some of the things that they actually should take care of, or what are the things that they should be prepared mentally or physically, so that they could excel in their job as quickly as possible?
You know what? At the end of the day, it's going to be a handful of ingredients which make the recipe for a good police officer or a good
Mhm.
law enforcement officer. And part of that is obviously you need a clean record and be of good character.
Yeah.
Equally as important is being physically fit, being mentally sound, so having some form of academic
Yep.
background, and last but not least, and most importantly, is volunteer experience. I'm a
Mhm.
strong believer in volunteering in your
Yeah.
community. Why I say that is because at the end of the day, when you put on a uniform, it's a form of public service. And if you haven't demonstrated any level of public service prior to getting on into uniform, then there's a disconnect there. Is
Mhm.
because at the end, the reason why you put on a uniform is not because of the paycheck. It's because you
Okay.
can make a community. Is that you can enforce the law and you can uphold principles of justice. And so, but in order to do all that, you have to demonstrate that you are involved with the community, that you are giving back, and you legitimately and sincerely care, and you're authentic about your goals and ambitions of becoming a law enforcement officer. So it's extremely important to give back your time.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And now, since I'm your friend, so I'm sure I'm not going to get any tickets around Canada as well.
As long as you drive safe, you'll be fine.
I will absolutely. Cal, I would be more than lucky enough to actually come back to Vancouver pretty soon, and then make my duties as a volunteer for Kids Play Foundation. So I'm really excited about that, and looking forward to that. So Cal, I just one last question before we end this interview. How I know you have been pretty active in the bodybuilding space as well, with all the weightlifting and all the physical activities that you encourage. So what's your message for someone, because I see a lot of kids actually just at the age of 22, 23, they get into taking some steroids and anabolics just to get the quick results, which is pretty harmful for their body, which is just not sustainable at all. So what's the one message that you would give to a young guy who's 22 years old, trying to get a good physique, trying to build a good career, trying to get a good mental health? So what are some of the suggestions that you would give to him?
You know what? Discipline is key in any aspect of life. If you have a strong sense of discipline, meaning that you're willing to commit and dedicate yourself to one particular goal and keep your focus on that, you will get to your destination. Just that simple. Whether that's academics or whether that's sports, whether that's your body, you know what? It doesn't matter. That one skill or that one principle of dedication and commitment and sacrifice, multiple principles, I should say, but most importantly, staying committed to one particular goal. It's so important, and that all that is the underlying variables in being focused enough to get to your goals. And so you have to have that sense of discipline, and that discipline is what's going to be absolutely key with respect to your success. And so when it comes to me, and it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
whether it's rain, shine, cloud, snow,
Mhm.
right? When I'm going to train, I'm going to train.
Yeah.
I'm going to get out there. So mentally, you have to be strong that way and resilient. Is that you have to stay focused and don't let anything get in the way of your goals. And so, in that respect, I'm very careful about my food, my supplements, my training, and all these factors come together once again to achieve a very high level of performance.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I'm also a huge believer of the fact that motivation is something that just comes in and goes away, but discipline is the real key. That if you really want to excel the goals, or get anything in your life, because that was pretty much the same for me as well when I was new to Canada. Such a different world. Everything was new, but was lucky enough that I got in touch with some amazing folks from our community, people like you and other people back in Montreal, Toronto, who were on the same path of actually doing something good for the community and doing good for their family. So, well, Gal, thank you so much for your time today. It was such a pleasure meeting you again, and I'm sure we'll meet soon when I'm back in Vancouver. And what's your plans for Montreal, by the way?
You know what, Gernur? Montreal is absolutely beautiful. I have been there multiple times and
Wow.
get enough. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to somebody a few days ago about Old Montreal, Old Town, and so it's very European. It's
It
very
is.
very beautiful, and but like I said, it's just Quebec as a whole just has a different aura.
Well,
Uh, so in that respect, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to go there and explore. And the next time I'm there, I will let you know so we can go together.
absolutely. I would love that. I will wait for that. Thank you so much, Cal.
All right, take care, Gernor. I'll talk to you soon.
So